You might be surprised to hear that if you know how to channel overthinking in the right way, it can actually be the seed to your evolution and to your growth in ways that you might not have actually thought about. I think the world looks at overthinking, doubt, confusion, uncertainty. The world is uncomfortable with these traits. People that succeed are the ones that have very high levels of certainty, that are like, I got this. The person that has everything under control, the person that's got it all figured out, the person that's very certain in their conclusions is oftentimes rewarded or respected or looked upon as the higher status person in society. Doubt, confusion, uncertainty are things that people don't value as much. And I believe that the world doesn't know how to value it. They're uncomfortable with ambiguity. They're uncomfortable with things that force them to sit in confusion that they don't know what to do with. One thing I'm going to suggest in this video is that overthinking is not a thing that's wrong with you. Overthinking is not a bug. I would say it's a feature if you know how to use it in the right way. I think that hesitation and pausing and doubt are actually the seed to the evolution of self in ways that people haven't really grasped yet. People use doubt to attack themselves. They use doubt to ask questions like, am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? What will this person think of me? Should I put out this video? Am I going to be judged for this? You're attacking yourself. Now, what if you took that overthinker in you and you just shifted the line of questioning, shifted it away from attacking yourself and towards refining your perspective? And that's the shift from using overthinking and doubt as something that hinders you to something that propels you in a way that you might not have ever imagined. You might ask questions initially like, am I good enough? What will this person think of me? Am I worthy to do this? But shift that line of questioning into something else. Why am I feeling this? What this person said, why did that trigger me? What is in me that even wants this thing to happen? Is my perspective here correct? Is there something that I'm missing in the way that I'm seeing this thing right now? What is something that will round out my belief on this topic? And that's a big difference. It's the first set of questioning is attacking yourself. The second set of questioning is helping you round out your perspective and uncover the unconscious traumas and anxieties and fears that are distorting your perspective and forcing you to see something in a way that's not actually true. Now, if you're someone that is completely built on certainty and saying that this is what it is, I got it all figured out, I'm going to move, the world looks at that as someone to aspire to be. I look at that as someone who is going to eventually stall in their evolution. The person that is very certain on the topic at hand, that has it all figured out, that just knows everything, or comes off like they know everything, they're not pausing to think about how they can refine their perspective or refine themselves. You can change your mind, you can change your perspectives with new information. But something that people don't think a lot about is evolving the self, evolving you, evolving who you are. That's where you have to sit with things like, why am I feeling this way? If I'm scared to speak up in this meeting, what is causing that? What is the seed of that? It goes from, am I good enough to speak up in this meeting, to what is causing this fear in the first place? What is the thing that's inside me that is giving rise to this anxiety? Why do I want to make sure that my point even lands? Why do I want to make sure that they even understand me? Why are these things important? If you go there and really sit with the answers to those questions and what comes up, it's not just going to change the way that you act. It's going to slowly evolve your way of being. Let's take that example of being afraid to speak up in the meeting. In response to that, there's a lot of things that you can do. You can speak up anyway. You can try to share one small thing that you're afraid to share and work up to speaking up in the way that you actually want. These are tactical things on the surface that can solve the problem. What I'm asking about is taking the overthinker into something much, much, much deeper, which is not asking yourself, are you good enough to speak up or will they judge you? But why is this fear even coming up in the first place? Why am I even feeling anxious about this to begin with? Why do I want these people to even like me? What is in me that is giving rise to these feelings? These questions that you ask yourself over time will lead to a refinement of self in a way that you might not have ever thought about. And I think that a person that is very certain, that is not someone who tends to doubt or tends to overthink, is less able to evolve themselves. The person that is certain that has it all figured out, I actually look at that person as more complacent in terms of their inner evolution. Because you might be successful in the world. You might be successful externally in the way you do things. Like those are all tactical. Those are all things that we do, right? When it comes to reflecting and evolving yourself internally and being able to see past the distortions that cloud our vision. I'm talking about the anxieties and the fears and the traumas and the things that cloud our vision. In order for you to see beyond those things, it requires a certain level of confusion and doubt and hesitation, reflection, for you to pause and allow those things to even surface. And that's the gift of hesitation. That's the gift of doubt, is that it forces you to pause, forces you to reflect in a way that certainty will not allow. And these things can be parallel. It's not that the person that's certain and is go, 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 it's not that they can't also coexist with doubt. These two things have to go hand in hand at some level. What I'm trying to say here in this video is that overthinking is not a curse. It's not something that is bad. It's not something that has to be avoided. It's not something that you should stop doing. I think it just takes a small tweak. It's a small reframe in what you point the questions towards. Don't point the questions against yourself. Don't point the questions against your own worth or whether who you are is good or bad. I think you should point it towards things that serve your own self-evolution. And then you'll evolve rapidly. There's another topic that I want to talk about here, which is the concept of doubt and certainty coexisting. There's a saying that's called strong opinions loosely held. People say this a lot, where they can have very strong points of views, but if you present information that changes their mind, or you present some data or some data points, it changes the way they think. And that's good. I think we should all be willing to change our minds and change our beliefs when new information comes about. What I'm talking about here is much deeper than that. When you change your mind, you swap out one belief for another. You swap out one perspective for another. But when you refine yourself, the self that is doing the fear in the first place, it creates a different level of presence. It changes your way of being. It's not just your thinking. It's not just how you function and how you act. It changes your presence. Your very existence in the world can change. That can only come from what I would call the right kind of doubt. It's not attacking yourself kind of doubt. It is the doubt that keeps you in a level of confusion that allows new perspectives, new ideas, new things to come to the surface. It's about questioning your perspective without questioning who you are or questioning your value. A lot of this just comes back to asking better questions. It comes back to asking questions that serve your evolution instead of hindering it. And that's the reframe that I think is really important. I used to be really uncomfortable with confusion. I'm someone who is not very fast or very quickly reactive. I'm not someone who immediately has a perspective on something. If you ask me a question, I need to sit and think for a minute. I used to not be comfortable with that. I used to wish that I was someone who was faster to think, faster to move. And I've learned that this confusion that I have, or this hesitation, this tendency to want to think, to want to pause, to want to wait and see what comes up is actually an incredible gift because it leads to the development and the refinement of new and new identities. I think a huge gift here is not just being open minded, is being open to changing the self, changing the identity. If you question your deep self enough, you eventually question yourself out of the identities that tie you down, the identities that hold you back. You will eventually end up refining yourself. You're not someone who ties their identity to a job, because if you ask enough questions and refine your own perspective, you will question yourself out of that. You're not someone who ties your identity to things. You're someone who refines your identity. You're someone who builds up things and then lets them go when they no longer serve you because you're not attached to it, because you've paused enough to ask yourself questions to understand who you are and who you are not in the way that you need to evolve. The world pushes us to be quicker, to be more reactive. But I think the people that evolve internally at the fastest rate are the ones who actually pause. These are people that transform themselves from the inside out. And these are the people that are okay with sitting inside of doubt without feeling like something's wrong with them or feeling like that's not the right thing to do. I think at some level you have to balance it externally. It's not just about rumination and refinement in your head. I think you have to balance it with some level of action too in the world. But I think there's a lot to be said for sitting with confusion, for sitting with doubt, for sitting with hesitation, and seeing what insights and perspectives come to the surface after that. Just sit with that. Just sit with that discomfort, the uncertainty, and see how it feels. So if you're someone who overthinks, I hope this video shows you a different perspective. I think you're sitting on a gift that you just don't know how to use yet. And I would really consider you to change the line of questionings that you ask yourself and see how it goes.